It is my pleasure to welcome our next speaker, who's a true fighter for our parishes and boroughs and counties, U.S. Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey. Senator Menendez started his public service career at the local level. He understands the counties play a critical role in addressing challenges and seizing opportunities. He was one of the closest allies in our fight to secure more resources for counties to respond to this pandemic, and we thank you, Senator, greatly. Throughout the public health and the economic crisis that we face, he worked across the aisle to be a champion for solutions that will benefit our counties and our communities. Please join me in giving our U.S. Senator Bob Menendez a great NACo welcome. Thank you, Senator. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, very much for your gracious introduction, for your leadership as part of NACo. And thank you to the National Association of Counties for the opportunity to address you today. First and foremost, I want to thank you for standing with me this past year in our fight to deliver fiscal relief to state and local governments across America, reeling from the havoc created by COVID-19. We all remember what it was last spring when the coronavirus first began to spread like wildfire. Healthcare workers scrambling for protective gear, curfews taking effect, businesses shutting down, schools and child care centers closing, small towns and big cities grinding to a halt, tax revenues freezing overnight, unemployment claims soaring, states starting bidding wars over medical supplies. We needed a national effort to fight COVID-19, but unfortunately, we didn't get it. President Trump failed to mount an aggressive national strategy for testing, for procuring supplies, and for stopping the spread of the virus. And the wearing of a mask became politicized, which dramatically undermined the effects of counties and local governments to try to stem the tide of the spread of the pandemic. It became painfully clear that states, counties, and municipalities would be largely left on their own to battle the worst pandemic in a century. And as COVID-19 spread throughout the country, so did the financial strain on county and local governments that faced soaring coronavirus response costs and plummeting tax revenues. That's what led me to take up the cause of emergency aid to state and local governments. I was a mayor. I understand what you all do at the county level of government. I understand its most significant, closest level of government to the people. No one in the Senate beat this drum louder than me. I was first to call to prioritize funding to our hardest hit communities. My legislation with, at that time, Senator Cassidy of Louisiana, a Republican colleague, the SMART Act, was the first to provide direct, flexible funding to every state, county, and municipality in the nation, regardless of size. And I was the first in the Senate to secure that bipartisan support for providing billions to state and local county governments at a moment when federal leadership was sorely lacking. And I want to thank you, the National Association of Counties, for helping us to build bipartisan support for this proposal across the nation. You, along with other groups like the U.S. Conference of Mayors, the National League of Cities, the National Governors Association, were instrumental in educating members and ramping up support for why there needed to be assistance. Unfortunately, that, of course, did not stop the majority leader at the time from blocking any action on the Senate floor, labeling our proposal as a quote-unquote blue state bailout. Never mind that, according to the Congressional Budget Office, state and local aid provides the biggest bang for the buck when it comes to stimulating our economy. And never mind that, in fact, even as our colleagues were refusing to consider even a single dollar in direct flexible aid to our counties and communities, that there is a big amount of this money that is going to states that are not blue, but are totally red. And I kept reminding my colleagues, when we talk about these issues, this is not a red or blue issue. This is a red, white, and blue issue. Voters chose to put Joe Biden in the White House and a Democratic majority in the Senate with the elections in Georgia. And with the passage of the American Rescue Plan, we delivered on our promise to take bold action to end the pandemic and begin to turn our economy around. Modeled after my SMART Act, the American Rescue Plan is sending $350 billion in direct, flexible aid to every state, county, and municipality in America. Counties of all sizes will receive more than $65 billion from this pot. In my home state of New Jersey, for example, it means more than $10 billion in fiscal relief, with $1.8 billion split among our 21 county governments. To be clear, securing aid was never a given. I had to continually make the case for this funding, fight efforts to reduce the top line amount, and remind my colleagues that this was about jobs, the very people who helped us get through the pandemic: police, firefighter, emergency management, public health, nurses, just to mention a few, were those who were facing losses of their jobs. In the latest job reports we have from February, we saw local governments shed another 44,000 jobs nationwide, in addition to the million that have been shed before that, even as demand for locally run services like housing assistance, emergency response, and public health went through the roof. Overall, more than 1 million jobs have been lost at the local government level since the pandemic began, and that doesn't bode well for our economy at large. We remember the Great Recession, how layoffs of first responders, teachers, public workers prolonged the economic misery of all Americans. That's because it makes little difference whether someone gets a paycheck from a big corporation or a county government. When a family loses their source of income, the pain ripples throughout the entire community. So to those who are saying this funding was unnecessary, I beg to differ with them. And for those who label this a blue state bailout, all of my Republican colleagues who voted against the American Rescue Plan, I'd like to remind everyone that $180 billion, about half of all of the monies, in direct aid is slated for states that President Trump won, that have Republican governors, or at least one and not two Republican senators. So it's not, as I said before, red or blue, it's red, white, and blue. But it was Democrats who delivered this funding and came to the aid of communities across this country when our colleagues turned a blind eye. So we're proud of the American Rescue Plan. We're proud to help safely reopen our schools, to also lifting low-income families and children out of poverty. We're proud of the many benefits it will provide our communities in the wake of the worst pandemic in a century and the most devastating economic crisis, certainly of my lifetime. We all crave for a return to normalcy, and to me, that's what the American Rescue Plan is all about. It's about rescuing the American way of life so that our children can learn in classrooms instead of on computer screens, so that we can gather together with loved ones without fear, so that we can join hands in prayer in our houses of worship, to enjoy a night out at our favorite restaurant, and rebuild the spirit of community across our country that we have missed out for over a year. Again, thank you to the National Association of Counties for your leadership. It was indispensable. And I know that you're going to put these hard-won dollars to work on behalf of the people that you serve.